Last night, Karen Handel defeated Democrat Jon Ossoff in one of the most highly visible and expensive House races that we have ever seen, costing somewhere around $50 to $60 million. Wow, that's a lot of money. So to get it, so to really break it down, Ossoff raised about $23.6 million compared to only $4.5 million raised for Karen Handel. That's amazing. So Jon Ossoff, the Democratic Party, poured millions of dollars of outside money into this election, and Ossoff was really, really good at raising money, and yet at the same time, Karen Handel, not so good at raising money, ended up beating him. Well, that's interesting. Now, let me show you, and this was actually part of the campaign strategy by Karen Handel, is painting Ossoff as, oh man, look at this outsider getting all this money from Nancy Pelosi. In fact, 86% of Ossoff's contributions came from outside the state of Georgia. So look, she was very successful in running those campaigns that linked her to national Democrats like Pelosi, and of course, casting him as an outsider. And I think that definitely is a factor in how they won, on how she beat him and how Ossoff lost. But there's the other part. The strategy of the Democrats. Now, I've reported before on the Democratic Party continuing to attempt to target so-called moderate Republicans. These are the Romney voters, right? That were supposed to be so disenfranchised or disenchanted with Donald Trump that they would end up voting for a Democrat if only that Democrat were to meet them in the center. If the Democratic Party, if the Democratic candidate was only to go further to the right to try to court these elusive Romney voters, oh, then they would go, oh, you know what? I see the light. I'm going to vote for a Democrat. Well, you know what happened. They ended up not doing so. It turned out not very well for Jon Ossoff. Now, he actually underperformed Hillary Clinton. That same district went for Donald Trump by 1 to 2 points in November. Ossoff lost by a lot more. Now, what's interesting, of course, in this entire race is the takeaway. Here you have the strategy of the Democrats running a candidate with no vision, who came out against progressive policies. For example, he said, I'm totally not in favor of Medicare and Medicare for all, sorry, and I'm against raising taxes for rich people. Now, Medicare for all is incredibly popular among the American people. It's got over 60% support. Now, the other thing is that he's like, well, I'm not Trump, but I'm also not going to go too hard against Donald Trump, because I know a lot of my voters or would-be voters voted for Donald Trump. I don't want to put you in that basket of deplorables. I'm not saying that. Hillary Clinton, she said that. I didn't say that. I'm not at all in that camp. I'm not going to go hard on Donald Trump whatsoever. I'm not going to call out his terrible policies. I'm just going to be like, hey man, I'm not Trump. Yay. This is what happens when you have that kind of candidate. The base gets very disinterested, very unexcited. Okay, and it turns out that you end up, if you don't have an excited base, who's going to come out and vote for you, right? You end up again with a base on the other side that is actually, well, they're always very excited to vote for Donald Trump, especially those suburban, Romney voters that the Democrats seem to think that they can court. Well, they're always enthusiastically voting for Republicans and for Trump candidates especially. So, and look, to those guys who think that you're going to court those Romney voters, no, it doesn't matter how centrist or right-wing you are. If you got a D next to your name, they're not going to vote for you. Simple as that, for the most part. Now, part of how they failed is, again, how they marketed Ossoff. And by they, I mean the consultants, right? Now, in Vox, Matthew Iglesias wrote, Ossoff's team was aware, of course, that the district is not accustomed to voting Democrats, and that he was vulnerable to that kind of attack, being the outsider, what I mentioned earlier. They attempted to counter this move by positioning Ossoff as blandly as possible. Just a kind of a nice guy who doesn't like Donald Trump. and dissociating him from any hard-edged ideas or themes. So this was your entire plan. Make him as boring as possible. That'll work. Hey, let's make this guy so boring that nobody's gonna care. Fucking genius, man. Fucking genius. Consultants. Boy, you've earned your pay, haven't you? Oh, it's so sad. So sad. And by the way, does that not sound familiar? Oh, I don't really stand for anything. I don't like Trump, and I'm against Medicare for all. I'm not edgy. I'm not edgy. I'm not liberal. I'm not progressive. No, no, no. I'm a pragmatist. Vote for me. Winning strategy. Loser. Total loser. Oh my God. Again, not the best campaign strategy, guys. Considering, of course, what happened in Kansas and Montana. Now, look, in the races, you can point out Kansas and Montana. Well, the Bernie-backed candidates, they didn't do very well. They ended up losing. Okay. But think of it this way. Look at the facts here. Now, Donald Trump won in those areas by 20 and 14 points, respectively, right? Now, these two progressives that didn't have the DNC behind them, didn't really have a whole lot of money, didn't have a whole lot of, I should say, backing from the establishment, if any. And those races are actually very, very close. And actually, they actually overperformed compared to what other Democrats did. Ossoff underperformed. Underperformed even Hillary Clinton, which is a disaster. Now, again, these candidates in Montana and South Carolina as well, these outside candidates in Kansas, James Thompson, they had no support, almost literally no support. I think maybe the most is that the DNC, the DCCC, I should say, sent about $500,000 to Rob Quist. Ooh, oh, wow. A little late on that one, though. But whereas in this race, the Democrats put millions and millions of dollars. They poured it into this election. And look, there was millions on both sides. There were outside Republican groups that were spending heavily on this as well. This was a very big contested seat, right? Now, in those other races, with Quist and Thompson and Mello, well, you had Republicans way outspending Democrats, and Democrats still making up giant leads and getting very, very close to winning. So Ossoff is completely different on that account, as they both spent tons and tons of money, and Ossoff obviously did not do very well. So they had a chance and they blew it, because again, Hillary Clinton lost that by only a couple of points, that district. That was a winnable district. And now, of course, you're seeing last night, if you're on Twitter, you're seeing last night a lot of these pundits are like, yeah, but, it's a Republican district, so, I mean, what do you expect? It's heavily Republican. No, you actually had a chance and you fucking blew it. Because you put up a very boring, a very bland candidate who didn't actually stand for anything. So, what do you expect is going to happen when you do that? The same thing is going to happen every time that they try to put up a bland candidate that's centrist or center-right. Well, they're going to choose the Republican and not the Republican light. That's what's going to happen. Now, the LA Times also had an op-ed in which the writer dissected the race. They said, Handel's victory suggests that despite an erosion of support precipitated by the tumult in Washington, Republicans are not seeing a mass defection in their base. Now, that's it. I mean, that goes back to their strategy, right? Let's focus on moderate Republicans, these Romney voters. Well, it doesn't work because, as you can see from these results, it's a completely flawed premise. There is no Republican defection. Yeah, they may not like Trump specifically. Does that mean that they're going to vote for a Republican or a Democrat? Especially a corporatist establishment Democrat? No, of course not. If anything, if you put up a bold progressive vision that tells people, in no uncertain terms, this is going to help you and your family, well, then it might actually get people to go, hey, you know what? That's better than getting stomped on by the Republican Party, and it's better than your corporatist establishment bullshit. Oh, maybe I'll actually go in that direction, see what happens, see if they can actually do help our family. Oh, I like Medicare. Medicare's super popular. I know people on Medicare. Oh, Medicare for all? Well, okay, maybe give it a chance. Again, over 60% of people, mostly independents and Democrats, are in support of Medicare for all. And yes, you even have a decent amount of Republicans that are in favor of that policy as well. Here's a radical idea. Why not, I don't know, run on it? Instead of running on, hey, I'm not Trump. I mean, you know, he's okay. He's okay. No, I'm not making fun of the deplorables or anything like that. But I'm not Mr. I just have slight disagreements with Mr. Trump, even though I think he's a decent man. No, you got to be strong. You got to be bold. You got to be progressive if you want to win. Or at least if you want to have a chance of winning. And they're not doing that. Look, how about Democratic Party? How about instead of continuing to try to court these ridiculous, do this ridiculous strategy of trying to court Romney voters by being even more centrist and right wing? Why not turn to your base? Progressives, go left. There are people who are young and progressive, and they actually want to see real change in the system. Now, of course, you don't want to do that because the donors don't want it, and the consultants certainly don't want it. They will continue to get paid handsomely for giving you shitty advice. And they don't want that gravy train to stop. Look, and when you talk about gravy train, what do you think those millions of dollars went to? It went to TV ads. And it went to political consultants. Okay? Right back in those pockets, right in those pockets of those consultants that helped Hillary Clinton lose against the worst Republican candidate to ever run. Maybe it's time to kick out the consultant class and the donors and actually turn it over to the people. Why not try something new? But if you continue to do the same thing that you're doing, you're going to continue losing in the same exact way. And the Democrats out there are saying, how could we lose this race, man? It was so close. You know what? It's a moral victory. We're past time for moral victories. We actually need to see some real victories. Because right now, the resistance, the only thing they seem to be resisting is winning. That is not the way that we need to go. If you need any more proof of how running as a centrist corporatist Democrat continues to fail, then this race is it. Hey everybody, thanks for watching this video. If you want to see more like this, please hit the subscribe button below. And if you want to support truly independent progressive media, please consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/TYTNation.